Good evening, everybody. As we begin today's meeting, we'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, before them the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Huron, and Wendat. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global Indigenous people that now call Brampton their home. We are honored to live, work, and enjoy this land. We will begin the meeting tonight with roll call. Deputy Mayor Singh.
Present.
Councillor Santos.
Present.
Councillor Vincente.
Present.
Councillor Brar.
Present.
Councillor Keenan.
Present.
Councillor Medeiros.
Present.
Councillor Fortini.
Present.
Councillor Tour is absent. Councillor Power. Present. Mayor Brown. I have all members except for Councillor Tour are present. Approval of the agenda, we have some changes that we'd like to acknowledge. Peter?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to members of committee and members of the public in attendance tonight. A few updates for tonight's agenda. First, in regards to, these are all three items related to the same business item. 7.1 on tonight's agenda is a staff report regarding an application to amend the official plan, zoning bylaw, and proposed draft plan of subdivision, Glenn Schnarr and Associates, Brant Haven Credit View, at 8940 Credit View Road in Ward 4, and the file number is OZS 2022-0014. It's to permit the development of 60 single detached dwellings, and it's south of Queen Street West and west of Credit View Road. There are a number of delegations identified under 6.2 related to this item, as well as a number of pieces of correspondence identified as 11.2 on tonight's agenda. In consultation with planning and development staff, this item is being withdrawn from tonight's agenda. City staff are withdrawing the report to facilitate additional review and confirmation of technical matters, specifically sustainability scoring in association with the development application. Therein, with this item removed, and the delegations and correspondence will be removed as well. And those persons that requested to speak to the item tonight or submitted correspondence will be notified in the future when this item comes back on the agenda. Secondly, through you, Mr. Chair, to members of the committee and members of the public, we do have an item on the agenda 7.5, which is a staff report on the application to amend the zoning bylaw, Naheed Corporation, 255-6830 Ontario Incorporated at 226 Queen Street East in Ward 1, and it is file number OZS 2022028 to permit a mixed-use development comprised of 2 towers, 35 and 47 stories with a 6 to 8 story podium. This is west of Kennedy Road at the northeast corner of Queen Street East and June Avenue. We have received an added delegation request, which will be identified as 6.6 on tonight's agenda, from Richard Domes and Michael Gagnon from Gagnon Walker Domes. And Mr. Chair, those are the updates at this point.
Okay. Thank you. So just to recap, so the Brent Haven application for Queen Street and Credit View Road has been withdrawn from the agenda tonight with the delegations and the correspondence, and they will be moved to another meeting in future time, and we will let everybody know that wanted to delegate on that application to come back. So is there anybody here for that Brent Haven application? Seeing none, our clerks did a fantastic job notifying everybody then. Way to go. I have Councillor Power moves approval of the agenda. All in favor? That carries. Declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any members that would like to declare a conflict of interest? Seeing none. Peter, do you see any? Our consent motion. Our next item is a consent motion. As per the process agreed by council, the consent motion will be subject to a recorded vote.
So through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps I'll summarize the items eligible for consent.
That's okay, Peter. I got it.
Okay, thank you.
I'll skip right to, just for everybody's notice, there's 6.3, the delegation from Mark Denardis. I'm removing that. And 6.1, the delegation from Chad Jean-Baptiste. I'm removing that so that those items can go into consent. If they're not into consent, we know that those consultants are here if there are any questions. 7.1 has been removed. Item 7.2, staff report, application to amend the official plan, zoning bylaw, Fremont Properties, Inc., Fremont M3 Condos, Inc., 10629 Mississauga Road, Ward 6. Any members like to hold that? Seeing none. 7.3 has delegations. 7.4, staff report, application to amend the zoning bylaw, proposed draft plan of subdivision, Gagnon Walker Domes, Gerpre Gill, 9058 Credit View Road, Ward 5. Any members like to hold that? Seeing none. 7.5 has delegations. 11.1, 11.2 has been referred. And the last one then we'll move is the heritage minutes, which 8.1. Councilor Vicente, you'll move consent? All in favor? That carries. Did I catch all those, Peter? Our first item is 5.1 staff report presentation, application to amend the zoning bylaw. So Neil Markham, Inc., care of Gagnon Walker Domes Limited, 2 County Court Boulevard, Ward 3. So just to let everybody know, thank you for coming. Just to let everybody know, this is our first meeting that we no longer put staff time in writing reports for the public meeting. These public meetings are strictly for you and you only. I will not entertain council asking any questions that provides any direction. If they'd like to ask questions for clarification only, I will entertain those. But this presentation right here is for the public and for the public only. Thank you very much.
My name is Nicole Hansen, and I am the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of the meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Gagnon Walker Domes Limited on behalf of Neil Markham, Inc. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 3, municipally known as 2 County Court Boulevard. The property is located east of Hurontario Street, north of County Court Boulevard, and west of Turtle Creek Boulevard. Next slide, please. This slide shows an overview of the site. The surrounding land uses are described as following. To the north, townhouses and commercial buildings. To the south, the provincial courthouse and commercial buildings. To the east, single detached dwellings framed by 2 golf courses. To the west, Peel Regional Police Services and surrounding commercial buildings. Next slide, please. The site currently consists of a single-story commercial building and a 4-story office building. The property fronts onto the Hurontario Main Corridor, which is envisioned to be a sustainable mixed-use corridor supported by Hurontario Light Rail Transit. Next slide, please. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to facilitate a mixed-use development consisting of 4 towers ranging from 23 to 45 stories in height, oriented along Hurontario Street, and 2 5-story residential mid-rise buildings oriented along Turtle Creek Boulevard. Development for the site will occur in 2 phases and will incrementally introduce new residential, commercial, and office uses. Next slide, please. The following is a summary of the proposal. The lot area is 2.7 hectares. The total floor area is 126,387 square meters. The total number of buildings is 6. The number of units is 1,610 units. The total floor space index is 5.88. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations to Council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, the Provincial Policy Statement, conformity with the Growth Plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel Official Plan, the City of Brampton Official Plan, and the Hurontario Main Corridor Secondary Plan. Next slide, please. The subject lands are designated office within the City of Brampton Official Plan. Next slide, please. The subject lands are designated as Mixed Use 2 within the Hurontario Main Corridor Secondary Plan. Secondary Plan policies state that lands south of Steeles Avenue that are designated Mixed Use 2 shall be developed predominantly for office and institutional uses. Next slide, please. The subject property is zoned Commercial 1, Special Section 2579. In addition to office uses, the Commercial 1 Special Section permits retail, commercial, and accessory uses to other permitted uses, where an amendment to the zoning bylaw is required. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing an amendment to the zoning bylaw to permit a site-specific mixed-use zone, which reflects the development. The proposed zone is HMU1-XXXX. Next slide, please. Where we are in the planning process. In terms of where we are, the application was filed with the city and deemed complete on January 16th, 2023. The application was circulated to commenting departments and agencies. Staff will continue to review the application, including reviewing comments from the public and technical comments. Issues raised will be addressed in the recommendation report and advance the final recommendation report to council for a decision. Staff will contact and follow up with residents who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring the development proposal. Next slide, please. So preliminary issues of the application are regarding the integration scale and compatibility of the development within the existing neighborhood, the proposed density of a 5.88 FSI, building heights up to 45 stories, which exceed maximum building heights established in the secondary plan, and whether the proposed office uses meets the intent of the secondary plan, which states that land south of Steeles Avenue that are designated mixed use to shall be developed predominantly for office and institutional uses. Additional considerations are regarding intensification being supported along a priority transit corridor, encouraging the efficient use of transit infrastructure investment, advancing the implementation of new housing, employment opportunities, and sustainable mixed-use communities through principles of new urbanism, enhancing pedestrian access and connectivity to open space with active transportation linkages. The aforementioned and other issues and considerations raised will be addressed in a future recommendation report. Next slide, please. The development application can be accessed by the public through BramPlan online. Next slide, please. This presentation will be available online shortly. Once again, my name is Nicole Hansen, and my contact information is posted on the screen along with the contact information of the applicant, Nikhil Dewan from Gagnon Walker Domes Limited, who's representing landowner Sonel Markham Inc. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me or the applicant. Thank you kindly and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. We'll now move to the delegations for 6.5, which is the application that you just saw. Our first delegation is Richard Domes from Gagnon Walker Domes. Welcome, Richard.
Good now for the main screen?
Looks good.
Yeah. All right, good evening, members of committee. My name is Richard Domes, Principal Planner at GWD Planners. We represent Sonel Developments, who is the owner of Two County Court. The subject site is currently developed as a commercial-only development with a one-story retail commercial building and a four-story office. I'm missing the presentation.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, just bear with us a moment. We're just bringing it up. You just paused your time, Richard.
Third page. There we go. The site is developed with a highly suburban car-oriented design with buildings centrally located surrounding an expansive surface parking lot, which was reflective of the time but now represents a highly outdated development form. Next slide, please. Under current conditions, the subject site lacks street presence, ground floor activity, visual interest, office commercial appeal, and mixed-use synergies. The subject site is in need of renewal. It is our opinion the subject site is underutilized in its current form based on its geographic location and access to the future LRT, and is an ideal site for mixed-use high-rise development. Next slide, please. So much of the way the cities are now intended to grow is focused around transit. This initiative is ingrained in provincial policy and adopted in regional and local growth strategies. Currently, Zoom BRT service runs along the Huron-Ontario corridor and Steeles Avenue to the north. Next slide, please. As we know, the site will soon be served by the Huron-Ontario LRT line. This infrastructure investment will introduce an unprecedented level of transit service to the city. The Huron-Ontario LRT will introduce 19 station stops between Brampton Gateway and Port Credit to the south, 3 of which are located in the city of Brampton, and one of those 3 station stops is at County Court, which immediately abuts the subject site. Next slide, please. A broad range of land uses and a variety of built-form typologies exist within the immediately surrounding context, including low-rise commercial and mid to high-rise residential, institutional, and office. Next slide, please. The subject site is located along a regional intensification corridor, and the subject site is also located within a major transit station area, or MTSA for short. The County Court Sur-Loup MTSA is planned to accommodate a minimum density target of 160 peoples and jobs per hectare. According to the Region Appeal's recent MCR exercise, additional people and jobs are required within this MTSA in order to meet minimum density objectives. Next slide, please. As noted earlier, the site is designated mixed use 2 in the secondary plan. The node, which indicates that the node shall be developed for prevalent amount of office. However, it also permits a full range of land uses and built forms, including commercial, institutional, and high density, high-rise residential uses. A height transition area is identified along the subject site's Turtle Creek frontage in acknowledgement of the intention that taller, more intense building forms are planned along Huron-Ontario. While redevelopment and intensification is anticipated with these height transition areas, it shall fall beneath a 45-degree angular plane. Next slide, please. The Sunil development proposal contemplates the redevelopment of the subject site as a mixed-use transit-oriented development that will optimize its strategic location along a mixed-use corridor that is supported by superior transit service. In total, the master plan advances 4 towers ranging in height from 23 to 45 stories along Huron-Ontario, and 2 5-story mid-rise buildings along Turtle Creek Boulevard. Tall buildings have been purposefully sited along Huron-Ontario Street to provide the greatest concentration of people and jobs closest to the transit station. Mid-rise buildings have been sited along Turtle Creek to provide a transition of built form massing in terms of building type and form. The master plan proposes to deliver approximately 1,600 residential units. Nearly 50% of those will either be 2 or 3 bedroom family size units. A total of 92,000 square feet of new office and street retail are proposed, which will accommodate approximately 300 jobs. Next slide, please. The Sunil redevelopment has regard for the secondary plan's intent to locate employment uses in the vicinity of the intersections of Huron-Ontario with Sur-Loup Drive and County Court Boulevard. In this regard, the proposal includes new Class A office space oriented towards the intersection to maintain its role as an employment generator and supporting the continued employment, commercial, and institutional uses located to the south, while at the same time introducing residential land uses. Next slide, please. The master plan proposes tighter, more urban setback conditions along Huron-Ontario, with larger setbacks along Turtle Creek and the abutting lands to the north. Proposed building and tower setbacks are shown in red in the attached image that range from 6 to 23 meters along Turtle Creek, as much as 37 meters from the mid-rise building to the north to Stornwood, the Stornwood condominium, and up to 23.5 meters from Tower D, which is the northerly tower at the north lot line, to separate the tower element of this building from the existing low-rise development. In addition, 30-meter tower separation distances are proposed between towers. Next slide, please. Pursuant to the secondary plan, a height transition area applies as noted. In response, the proposed development proposes 2 5-story mid-rise buildings that fell well below the 45-degree angular plane, which is shown in the orange plane on the screen. Next slide, please. 3 separate private amenity spaces are proposed along Turtle Creek Boulevard that will integrate with the proposed buildings, existing streets, and the internal private nerve. Next slide, please.
Wrap up, Richard.
Yep, thank you. As noted, the redevelopment of the subject site will proceed in phases. Which is a particular worth of noting is that the existing office building will remain as part of Phase 1 that will allow the function of the site to continue to accommodate employment uses throughout the development progress. And lastly, representative images on the next slide, which Mansour Kazrouni of IBI Architects will talk to in more detail as part of his following delegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Are there any questions of Richard? Seeing none. Our next delegation is Mansour Kazrouni from IBI Group. Mansour, welcome.
Thank you.
You have 5 minutes once we get the presentation up.
Good evening, members of council, members of staff, and members of the public. Thank you for having us. My name is Mansour Kazrouni. I'm a principal at IBI Group Architects. We're the architects for the project. I will just spend a few minutes highlighting some of the key architectural features of the project. Can we go to the next slide, please? And the next. Thank you. So this is the site plan that's before you, which Richard eloquently described in terms of all of the numbers. We have followed some of the objectives that were articulated earlier related to new urbanism, transit supportive site development, a very walkable, pedestrian-friendly sort of planned environment that seeks to keep automobiles on the periphery of the site and really create a central space that builds connections, not just within the community, but beyond the community. You can see that the site along Hurontario has a central vehicular entrance that has drop-offs, but as you kind of traverse into the site east, you encounter a wonderful open space that is pedestrian dominated. You couldn't take a car through there to Turtle Creek. It creates a great mid-block connection that connects Turtle Creek to Hurontario Street. Vehicular access is provided off of Hurontario at the north end of the site and County Court at the south end in the mid-block on the north-south sort of Woonarf Street that runs parallel to Hurontario. We have located, you'll see in the next slide very shortly, the vehicular access ramps very close to these access points so that central street is pedestrian dominated, it's well landscaped, it's well treed, and really fosters a sense of community. The towers, as you heard, the tallest one is at the corner at 45 stories, and then they taper down to 35 in the middle and 23 at the north end of the site. The two buildings on the east side are 5 stories, but they step down to 4, 3, and 2, so the predominant street wall facing the street is 2 stories, and it's well set back from the right-of-way on Turtle Creek with a wonderfully landscaped sort of open space at the southeast corner. You heard about a 23-meter setback at that corner. Can we go to the next slide, please? On the next slide, you'll see the ground floor, and everything that's sort of articulated in the purple tone around Hurontario is retail. So most of the Hurontario frontage is dominated by retail that's well set back from the street, has opportunities to spill out with patios or street-related activity that provides real street animation, a real pedestrian-friendly environment. You heard about transit at the corner. The bright blue at the corner is the office lobby entrance that becomes the predominant reading of the corner. And then the 2 yellow elements in the middle of the purple blocks are the lobbies, and these are through lobbies into the residential development. So they're clustered, so 2 of the towers have a common lobby and the other 2 have a common lobby. On the east side, what you're seeing in the pink are townhouses that face the single-family homes across the street. So we get the sort of synergy of residential facing residential, well set back from the street. Can we go to the next slide, please? Architecturally, you can see how the scale kind of drops as we traverse north. that mid-block connection that I spoke about is punctuated with a bridge that creates a gateway, a real sense of arrival into the site, and a very strong and memorable sense of place. Architecturally, we've chosen to break down the form of the building, deploying materials, playing with the notion of a textured and a glazed facade to enhance the verticality of these towers, while the middle towers are very similar in scale and articulation. The one on the south side that frames the corner really makes a signature statement with some very sculpted moves, playing with color, texture, materiality to create visual interest. The street frontage, as I explained earlier, is dominated by retail and lobbies, so it's a very animated, very active street frontage. Next slide, please. This is a three-dimensional rendition.
Wrap up.
Almost there, yeah. We can go to the next slide. And that's the gateway element. Next slide, please, with the bridge. The entrance into the office lobby, well set back, wonderful plaza forecourt at the doorstep of transit. Next slide. And the low-rise scale of the 5-story elements that front onto Turtle Creek Boulevard. And I believe we have one more that would show you, actually we can go, yeah, that one, which shows you the, sorry, if you could just go back up, please. That one shows you the stepping down towards Turtle Creek and the 2-story form predominant on the street. I think I can stop there. You have a clear sense of how the scheme is articulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mansoor. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Our next delegation is a video-audio delegation from Vera Davis, Brampton resident.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Vera has submitted an audio delegation, and we're just going to play it right now.
The proposed zoning bylaw amendment and subsequent development of 4 towers and 2 5-story mid-rise buildings at 2 County Court Boulevard will not alleviate the shortage of permanent housing and will cause even more congestion to our roadways and create all the unfavorable issues that are associated with high-density housing. You only need to look at the area around Square One in Mississauga to see the traffic nightmare that now exists due to the unrestricted construction of high-rise buildings. It is evident that cars are the primary choice of transportation in Peel, despite the implementation of Brampton's Zoom and Mississauga's My Way. Buses are simply being replaced with the LRT with no incentive for residents to take public transit. The Transportation Impact Study submitted by WSP states that historical TMCs from 2019 were utilized for the study intersections where applicable. For intersections without historical traffic data, new traffic counts were collected on February 10, 2022. Decisions cannot be made for a proposed development based on the statistics of traffic studies gathered during the height of the pandemic or using historical data from 4 years ago. This stretch of Huron-Ontario was extremely congested prior to the pandemic and prior to the LRT construction. Yet the developer will have 2 driveways exiting onto Huron-Ontario while suggesting there will be minimal impact. The reduction of the existing 3 lanes in each direction to 2 lanes because of the introduction of the LRT on Huron-Ontario will only add to traffic congestion. Turtle Creek Boulevard is currently a residential street lined with 2-story houses that will become a busy thoroughfare since the only access to and from the southbound lanes of Huron-Ontario will be via Turtle Creek Boulevard. Most of the units in this proposed development are an investor's dream, with 94% of the units designated as 1 and 2 bedrooms. This is not indicative of long-term family-oriented housing, which currently exists in the area. This is about packing in as many units as possible for a bigger return for the developer and investors, with no focus on promoting home ownership. Prior to purchasing my home on Turtle Creek Boulevard, I resided in Etobicoke in a nice neighborhood until the development of multiple high-rise towers located at Dixon Road and Kipling Avenue. Within a few years of the completion of this development, the area became a magnet for gangs, drugs, and all the other crimes associated with high-density housing, which required security patrols with guard dogs to try to control the gang violence and crime. It continues to be an ongoing problem. Of course, this also resulted in the devaluation of the properties in the neighborhood. Where else can you find a 3-bedroom condominium in the GTA for less than $500,000? Regent Park was developed to address the substandard housing and social issues. Our neighbor lived in this development as a child with his family, but they left for the obvious reasons. Our homes and the quality of our lives will be directly impacted by this development. Our privacy will become non-existent, and our homes will be in the shadow of these proposed 4 towers and 5-story buildings. There is no green space between the existing houses and the proposed development. Shadow studies have been conducted for this development, which clearly show the neighborhood will be impacted. But have these studies also considered the shadow studies from other nearby proposed developments and their combined impact on our neighborhood? A report on wind studies has not been submitted for this development, but with all the other proposed developments in the area, it's inevitable that our neighborhood will be subjected to wind tunnels reminiscent of those in downtown Toronto. Illegal residential parking continues to worsen due to the number of multiple basement rental units which are now permitted and from the overflow parking from the nearby courthouse. Although the proposal includes underground parking, we will soon see our street lined with even more illegally parked cars once the number of vehicles exceed the total parking spaces. One of the 4 proposed towers at 45 stories, which appears to have been changed from the original proposed 53 stories, is just a few stories less than the TD building in downtown Toronto. A development like the existing Kniff Stornwood townhouses on Turtle Creek Boulevard is more in keeping with this family-oriented neighborhood. The high-rise development does not reflect a plan to address the lack of housing in Brampton. This is a development designed to benefit investors and speculators while continuing to make housing scarce for permanent residents. It would be a welcome first to have the concerns of the residents of our long-established neighborhood take precedence over the financial gains of a developer. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment should be denied, and any future development should focus on permanent residents living in a safe, accessible neighborhood.
Thank you, Vera Davis. Our next delegation is Bhupinder Mavi. Bhupinder, please come down. You have 5 minutes.
So is the next person?
Our next delegation is Bhupinder Mavi. Bhupinder, you have 5 minutes. Please come down and address the... Welcome, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just a resident, so I'm not that articulate. So I'll still put up my points that I have. So there was a point in notice that said transition from a low density to a high density. So I just made a Google map, and I'm comparing the footprint area of the development versus, say, the single-story houses versus medium density development just to the north of it. So footprint-wise, we are speaking of, in the same footprint area, 28 single-story houses currently on the east side of Turtle Creek. 28 houses for the same footprint, approximately. Go up north, which is a medium density, which is a gated community, about 100 houses in that medium density development just to the north side of it. And this housing development, which is not comparing the commercial aspect of it, have more than 1,600 residential units. So, speaking of 45 degrees but that's a different thing. But speaking of a scale of going from 28 for the same footprint to 110 to a 1,600 is way too much for this area to absorb. And not only this area, it seems that the city did not allow the LRT to continue north of Steele Avenue. And somehow the residents in this Steele and Horentiero area are getting penalized by throwing all the development right at that corner. So it's too much of houses cluster in a very small neighborhood that will just damage the whole neighborhood infrastructure as well as the community of the housing, if you will. the current bylaw, I don't know when the current, wasn't the current bylaw just changed some years ago without really any development being happened with that bylaw change? So now it is, never mind that bylaw change, now just step up that and go to a very high density proposal, which is, to me, it is again, too much for the area to absorb. Traffic, yes, somebody already put up the traffic. What about the traffic that will spill out the immediate neighborhood? 1,600 houses, people come visit the commercial spaces. Are there enough above ground spaces in that area? Because if there are not, it will definitely go into the neighborhood. Yes, we can go fight the city later, no parking signs and whatnot, but immediately in the neighborhood of Turtle Creek, Inverary Drive, Sugarcane Creek, there will be a lot of traffic that we'll see, which we did not bargain for when we bought the houses. I saw the slide where they're focused on 45-degree elevation. Oh yeah, it's a 45-degree elevation. It is satisfying that, but that's for only the first two smaller buildings. If you keep that 45-degree, it doesn't. The 4 towers are way above that 45-degree side of view. So it was a good point. It is more than 45 degrees, but that's only for the first 2 stories, not the remaining 4. The remaining 4 are more than half of it is beyond 45 degrees. If that's the point, I don't know. The FSI, the FSI floor per square, I don't know what that is, 5.88. Is there a guideline for the residents to use, or the city says, okay, this is our guideline, we won't go beyond that? We don't have, as a resident, we don't have that information. We don't want the developer to come with a number and the city just follows it we don't have enough, like all the slides that you show, we don't have that information. We need that information. I didn't know that there were reports. There were 5 reports of traffic study or what study. I didn't know that. So that should be given to us beforehand, before we even, present our case and whatnot. So as far as this meeting is concerned, to me, it is just more knowledge that I have to absorb before I make up my decision, or I have more points to put forward to. So these are my basic concerns. And okay, one thing I want to just, this is not really related to that. I read a news article where the premier is saying that the developers are not being asked to put in money for the development of that area, like utilities and whatnot. I don't know if that is the case. I'm concerned about if the new building comes up in that area, there will be new utilities that they have to lay down. Who's the money coming from? Is the city of Brampton residents going to pay for that? Or the new developer is going to pay for laying out all the infrastructure for water pipes, sewage, and whatnot? That's it. Thank you so much.
Bhupinder, so you have some really great questions, and I just want to let you know, we do have staff here. They've taken down all of your questions. And just to go back on on the studies that are being submitted, this presentation is here today for you. Okay. We're getting the same information that you're getting. Staff haven't looked at the studies yet. As soon as they get into the studies, then they'll be looking to write a report. Okay. Once that report is ready, everybody that delegates here today, everybody that sends in any correspondence to our planners will get copies of the report for when that report comes back to planning and then essentially to council to make a final decision. Okay. So just wanted to let you know that. Okay. But thank you very much for your questions. Steve Ganesh, our Commissioner of Planning.
If I could, just through to the chair, all of the studies that staff will be reviewing as part of their recommendation report are also available online for any member of the public to download. And certainly, if they're having issues accessing that, feel free to contact the planning department and we'll make sure that they get the copy of those studies.
Okay. So now that concludes the list of delegations. But I'd like to ask, is there anybody in the audience that would like to delegate on this matter? If you have any other additional questions, come on down. If you have any other additional questions that weren't captured, we'd like you to come down. We're going to have a book there in a minute to write your name and address. and you can do that right after your delegation. You can go do that. But if there's anybody else that would like to delegate on this item, I ask you to come down now, and we can grab your information. You have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
I just need 2 minutes, actually.
State your name.
So my name is Pankaj. I'm a resident of Turtle Creek Boulevard. And when I saw this proposal, absolutely, no, absolutely. It's going to be a nuisance to the community itself. I think most of it will be covered by the first, the lady who spoke. I think she's done an exemplary job. Probably one thing probably she must have missed is the security itself. We have a courthouse just next there at the south end. With 1,600 residents coming in this particular location in such a small area, every second minute there's going to be a siren blowing. We have, as it is, we have a fire station right in front of us, and there'll be police vans just running across the right, left, center because of the crime increase and all that kind of stuff, and the security, as I said, out to courthouse. So that was the additional point I just wanted to make. But just everything has been covered pretty well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Don't forget to write down your name in the book behind you.
All right, I'll do that.
Our next delegation.
Hi, my name is Les Molnar from 15 Inverary Drive in Brampton. When you go up our street, you'll be looking right at the 43 tower up there. When I look at the developments that are going around Brampton right now, I see the duo towers at McLaughlin and Steeles. I see the towers at the west side of Shoppers World. And I see the other towers I've been through, Queen and Jacuzzi. They're all in the 20, 23 story range. 45 stories is beyond belief that City of Brampton would allow that to occur. I just think it's just not characteristic of the community we live in, and it'll affect a lot of things. The traffic study I glanced through last night, I saw at WSP, I think it was, at the conclusion, all those studies were done between 2018, 2022. Part of that was COVID. And at the bottom of the study, I remember it saying they expect the travel along 2 County Court on Steeles or on Highway 10 to be reduced. I said, how can that be when couple hundred yards south, there's supposed to be 2,000 residents and a new condominium development there. A few hundred yards north, Brampton, there's 5,000. Across the road from Shoppers World, there's 2,000. There's another 2,000 at duo condominiums. The traffic, plus when you think of all the commercial activity that the fellow from Mr. IBI had mentioned, the new stores, the new business development, the new retail spaces, that's all going to draw people, not necessarily from the condominiums, but all over. There's going to be transportation delivery trucks. So to say any minute about reduced traffic is to me ludicrous. It will increase, there's no doubt about it, when you account for all the other studies or all the other condominiums around. I would like, as a resident, I'm opposed to the 45-story towers and 35-story towers, since everything else around the area is Road 23 right now. And I know the other ones want to be 40 or 45, but I think Brampton should start looking at capping that at 23 at most. I prefer it not be rezoned. I prefer it to be, if anything, if it has to be, and I understand Brampton has the idea of expanding and growing, and we want to grow that. We want to bring in professional people, local, international, and local people into a complex, into an area that's going to be vibrant and great. I'm not a fan of the IBI design. I think it looks more like a glass tower. If you look at their design down at M3 down in Mississauga, it's wonderful. When you look at this design, it's not impressive. I prefer a mid-size or mid-rise tower, mid-rise buildings in that whole area. And when you look at the architectural drawings, you see vast areas that looks very spacious. When you're right there on Turtle Creek Avenue, that's right in front of you, and you're looking up like this, and you'll see all those condominiums. I think Brampton has to look at it and build something. Come back with the mid-rise towers that will invigorate and give it something new in Brampton, not just a copycat towers that they have all over the place. So that's a little bit about that, and just the idea of, in the future, of rather than, we appreciate architects and designers and everything like that, and all the work and effort that they put into things. Why don't we, as planning people and designers and architects, flip the whole chart over, get some ideas on the planning of what we want to do, bring it to the residents before you spend all this money and effort and time trying to propose something. So that's just a little bit of a few. I submitted to Nicole 3 pages of documents. I have more I could do on that, but certainly a design and changes, I leave it up to you. Thank you.
Les. Our next delegation.
My name is Jennifer Clark, and I'm a resident of Stornwood to the north of this proposed complex. And I would like to address we can go back to the traffic many times, but I think if we look at the scope of everything that's going in on that corner or that's proposed for that corner, there's no traffic study that's going to accommodate 10,000 new units, which is included in the proposals that I've seen for 200 County Court, for Shoppers World, for 2 County Court, the property across the street, the one at the Tokyo Sushi. I could go on, there's the 2 at the Duo, but that's just 10,000 units on that corner. How are you doing a traffic study for something that you're envisioning coming forward? If you do go and look at other areas where they've done this, you'll see it. It's a disaster. And every single resident area around it has been diminished. There are issues around housing, and I will give you credit for that, but where's the mixed middle? Can we get a little bit more of the housing that actually makes communities better? It makes them more diverse, and it provides, how do I put it, a certain, I don't want to use the word quaint, but it just makes it that everybody wants to be there. That's what we need. I realize that this is a traffic zone or a transit zone, but not every neighborhood in Toronto that has transit has been greatly diminished by high rises, and those are the places people want to live. That's my comment.
Thank you for your delegation.
Hi, good evening. So I am not a resident of the area, but I am a tenant inside 2 County Court. So we found out about this development through patients who came through our clinic and told us the sign was up. So I sent in a few questions to Nicole. She said, I don't know where the rights are for the tenants in the building currently, because we moved our office there about 4 years ago. We put down quite a bit of leasehold improvement and all that. So I just would like to know, where does it stand for the tenants inside the building? Because apparently nobody seemed to have known about this, except for the sign that went up. So do we have any rights being tenants in the building? How does it affect us? Like, how much notice do we get? How are we gonna be moved? And we moved to the area mainly because where we were before, it was a lot of traffic, and patients were complaining about, how hard it is to get there, how hard it is to get parking. So I'm sitting here just kind of understanding, and I appreciate that, in life things have to move forward, things have to grow. But even as it stands, a lot of the area parking is from the court people that they go to court, so they park on here. And even for the little building that we have, there's sometimes not enough parking. And I understand there's parking underground and all that. So that's where I'm coming from. I would like to know what's happening with the project so that at least we can plan for our business, which also has employment and clientele. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next delegation. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, everyone. My name's Adam. Like Huyen, I'm a tenant, so I'm approaching this a little differently than a lot of the other people that have already spoken. I I too just want a little bit of clarity and transparency with regards to if the zoning gets approved, what is our timeframe so that we can understand how it'll affect our business and what changes we'll have to make and in what timeframe. I think it was mentioned that our current building will be left in place during phase 1. So what does our day-to-day life look like when they're building 40-story buildings around us? Can we still run our business during that? Is it feasible? Is it realistic to be able to do so? So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I hope you guys really think about the residents as well, because you've seen a lot of passion from them. This is my business, but this is their home, so this is where they raise their kids. I'm also curious if there's enough infrastructure within the community for educating the kids. Is there schools available for them? What will the buses look like? How will that affect traffic as well? So these are some of my considerations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next delegation.
I made a written submission.
Okay.
Am I allowed to reiterate that, or should I just leave it at that?
You can, absolutely.
Okay.
Your written submission will be captured amongst staff and will be, the comments will be provided there.
Yeah, so I have a couple of few points. One is about the longevity of this construction. You know, towers that size, they would probably be about 2 years. So we got 4 towers. Like, to me, that looks like a 10-year construction project. But, you know, I'm wondering, is there a plan to release the construction periods? Also, the noise level during construction, can the developer tell what kind of noise we can expect, for how long can we expect it? There's talk about 1,700 parking spaces. And, you know, like I imagine there is rock that has to be drilled through. What kind of noise can we expect? How long will that take? What about damage to the nearby properties from the vibration? Should there be cracks in the foundations? That's something that should be considered as well. Also I understand this is a high traffic area for transit, but the transit line goes to Mississauga. What about all the people that work in North Brampton, East Brampton? They will take buses, they will take cars. You know, we are reducing, this has already been mentioned, but we're reducing 3 lanes to 2 lanes, plus all the other development, 200 county court, 1,900 more units. So the traffic gridlock is a concern. Visual obstruction to the units. I'm a Stornwood resident. Fortunately, I don't face that property, but there's 12 units that face it directly. They will, you know, I don't know how they're going to be affected as far as property values, quality of life, from having these tall buildings nearby. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. State your name and please and go behind you. And
okay, my name is Steve Bear.
And then just behind you, if you can write it in the book.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else that would like to delegate on this item? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Ramesh Ramjit. I live smack in the middle facing the development. And I have a few of my neighbors also here. And there are many issues have been raised here, and I kind of agree with all of them. I want to add a couple of things more to them. The first thing is the traffic. From the footprint I saw there, there's only one main traffic coming in from Turtle Creek, and it's at the far end of the property, and the north end. And Hurontario, I see 2 entrances there. They, because of the road construction, and I think they're going to be a right in, right out there. Am I right? those two entrances from your Ontario. Right in, right out. You cannot enter from your Ontario if you're going south. You have to go to your traffic lights at Turtle Creek, at County Court, and then turn into Turtle Creek where we all live. Now, it's a madhouse there, right now as it is. People who are presently working in that development area, we had to call the police because they were parking whatever parking was available there, and then they ended up parking in the street in front of our houses. And all of our neighbors, we talk about this, when we are backing out to get out of our driveway, cars are all over the place. And that's presently without another 1,600 residents coming in there. I don't see how we can handle this thing and the level of comfort and conflict, traffic conflict. I don't know what studies have been done in traffic. I'd like to see that, because with this additional 1,600 more, you're going to generate a lot of traffic and a lot more conflict, a lot more accidents. And it's going to be very inconvenient for us living there. You know, I've been in this country for 45 years, and this is my 7th house in 45 years. And very good places I lived. This was my best, I tell you. I lived in Thornhill and very expensive places. This was the best subdivision. And this development is going to destroy our livelihood there. It's such an enjoyable place to live, open space, and the convenience of having a family and growing up there. When they put these towers, it's going to block, even with 45 degrees, it's going to block the sunlight with all the frontage. We're not going to see sun anymore, which is a big thing, right? We're going to lose all our vitamin Ds now, right? So we got to go to medication or something. Well, I'm joking, but you know what I mean. It's not good for us. I don't know about the capacity and the sewer system to take in that much more development. Does it have the capacity? I'd like to see that study as well. But my main focus is on the traffic. It's all the traffic is going to come through there. Anybody coming south from traveling south to turn in there will have to come through Turtle Creek. No other way. If they're going north, okay, they have a choice of making a right in or right out. But this traffic, as it is now, is a problem. And I cannot see how you can diminish this. Like, what possible thing can you do to make it less? The number of traffic will increase. There's no way you can reduce it. I don't see how. Would this development be gated community? Would it have a gate for people to go in there? Or anybody could just drive in there in and out as they please? What is it going to be like? You know? And, you know, we walk our dogs and we walk down the street very nice and easy. What are we going to do now? You know, because cars will be coming in and out as if you're in the 401 there. Because that's the only entrance. I would have thought that they would think about doing something from the main road, from County Court. Mind you, there's not much room there, but I thought they would have tried to do something there, but not to bring it into Turtle Creek. It affects the whole subdivision. And where we are, me and my neighbors, if we go south, the traffic is coming in. If we go north, the traffic is in and out. We don't have a choice of moving. The people who live inside the subdivision, they could go around somehow and get out and get in. We are stuck there. We don't have any way in or out. My suggestion is that they find some other way to enter from the Turtle Creek, but not where it is right now. And then not forgetting their townhouses, beautiful townhouses. They generate a lot of traffic there as well, which is fine. It's working at the moment in spite of the difficulty we are having right now. They are still parking in the streets and they're getting tickets all the time. It's not going to get better. And my only suggestion is that this development is not right for us. and they should look at putting some lower houses, maybe if they maybe very expensive houses or something like that, with minimum yard space, and keep it that way.
Thank you for your delegation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I need you to write your name in the book. So now we have item 5.1, the staff report presentation.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, we just need to confirm, we had a report that the audio's been lost.
Audio test.
We're good? It's been moved by Councilor Madero's staff report, item 5.1, presentation application to amend the zoning bylaws, Sunil Markham, Inc., Gagnon Walker Domes, 2 County Court Boulevard, Ward 3, location Hurontario Street and Turtle Creek Boulevard, along with 6.5 and the added delegations.
Sorry, Peter.
11.1, the correspondence. All in favor? That
Peter,
carries.
please hold. Just hold 1 second.
Okay.
Audio test.
I can hear you. Members on, if you can hear us on the online, we're just checking audio now. Okay, so the stream is still recording, so we are still getting out to the public. For anybody that's on WebEx, if you want to, if you can't hear me, then it doesn't matter what I'm saying. But if you can jump off, we'll put it in the message. If you can jump off and reconnect, we think that'll work. Roger said just unplug it for 30 seconds, and we'll be okay. So we're going to keep going. Our next item is item 6.4, application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, Wellings Planning Consultants, Schlegel Villages in 425 Great Lakes Drive, Ward 9. Our first delegation is Brad Schlegel, Schlegel Villages, Inc. Welcome, Brad. You have 5 minutes. Once we get your presentation up.
Yeah.
Yep. We'll actually ask if people want to clear out. We'll give it a couple minutes and.
don't sell as many tickets as I used to.
Thank you, everybody. Brad, please.
Chair Pelesci and committee members, my name is Brad Schlegel from Schlegel Villages, and I would like to take the opportunity to emphasize a few key points from my presentation at the public meeting. Next slide, please. We are a three-generation family organization with over 70 years of service in the seniors care field. Our mission is to provide quality of life and life purpose for our residents and to keep seniors at the center of our communities. Next slide, please. We have 19 villages across Ontario that we have designed, built, own, and manage, including the village of Sandalwood Park, which is currently a 120-bed long-term care home, proudly serving the Brampton community for over 20 years. Next slide, please. I would like to spend a few minutes just to explain our unique village model, which is a multifaceted one. Next slide, please. Firstly, it is a care model. We provide a continuum of care, which offers many different levels of care so that we can meet the changing care needs of our residents all under one roof. Next slide, please. It is a social model where social engagement and belonging is emphasized through our robust recreation programs and by our village design, which features our signature main street and town square. The main street is a social spine which connects all the parts of the village and has common space amenities located along it. Next slide, please. The third component of our village model is research and innovation. PhD research chairs from the internationally recognized Schlegel University of Waterloo Research Institute for Aging will be conducting research programs within the village, seeking solutions to better provide for older adults across Ontario. Next slide, please. The village will also be a seniors hub, which offers services not just to our residents, but also to the broader community, providing programs such as the Seniors Community Center, hair salon and spa, and our Penthouse Ruby restaurant. Next slide, please. Also services such as a medical center and pharmacy, again serving our residents, but also the broader community. Next slide, please. And the living classroom, where a local community college would run geriatric nursing programs from right within the village. Next slide, please. And now to the site itself. The master site plan shows the configuration of the village with the existing LTC, which is phase 1, with the 4 fingers at the bottom of the page. Phase 2 would be the first orange tower and podium, and the connecting town square located in between the 2 orange towers. The main street is shown as the green line extending the entire length of the village. Phase 3 would be the orange tower and podium located at the north or top of the page, located on the site right along Sandalwood Parkway. And phase 3 is not expected to be open for at least another 10 years. Next slide, please. The landscape plan shows how we intensely landscape outdoor open areas, since they are important components for resident well-being. There are pedestrian walkways looping around the entire village, as well as connecting into the municipal sidewalk system. Also shown is the main courtyard with koi pond and gazebo. This would be a wonderful public performance space to support local artists who could perform for our residents and also members of the surrounding community. Next slide, please. The next slides are renderings of the proposed building. This one is the view from the west upon proposed full build-out. The existing LTC is on the right. Next slide, please. This slide shows the same view only after phase 2 is built. The empty space along Sandalwood Parkway on the left is for the ultimate phase 3, which, as mentioned, is at least 10 years away. Next slide, please. This side shows the view from the Sandalwood Parkway and Great Lakes Drive intersection at the street level. This is again showing the full build-out. Next slide, please. And this is the view from the intersection after phase 2 is built and before phase 3 is built. Next slide, please. Now this is the view of our town square main entrance from Great Lakes Drive. And this is showing the full build-out. Next slide, please. And this is the same view after phase 2 is built. I should also mention that the village will provide 450 to 500 well-paying healthcare jobs for the community. We also have had good preliminary discussions with District Energy, and we are designing our mechanical system to be able to accommodate this possibility. The building will also be certified under Green Globes to ensure high sustainability and environmental performance. Schlegel Villages is very excited about providing much-needed seniors accommodation and care, and about bringing the full village continuum of care and campus of care model to the Brampton community. Thank you for the opportunity to present, and I'm available to answer any questions that the committee might have through you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Brad. Are there any members that would like to ask Brad any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your delegation.
Deputy Mayor Singh will move it. Thank you.
Who's this?
Deputy Mayor
Deputy
Singh
Mayor?
would like to.
Please go ahead, Deputy Mayor Singh.
I was just saying I'd like to move it. Sorry, Chair.
Okay. Our next delegation is Robert Anderson, Anderson Welsman Architects.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I was presenting on behalf of our organization, so
excellent.
The other folks listed, Mr. Wellings, Mr. Anderson, I think I'm not going to delegate or just here to answer any
Glenn
questions.
Wellings as well?
Yes.
Perfect. And we have Terry Miller. We're going to bring Terry Miller in. I believe he's online.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a moment here, we're just going to.
I'm sorry, I wonder if you can hear me now.
We can hear you, Terry.
Hi. I would like just to ask two questions, not about the project so much as about the zoning applications. This plot originally was for the 7-story buildings, and now it's at 12. And so I'm wondering whether or not the zoning bylaw and the official plans are going to be changed everywhere. I noticed that the previous delegation on Turtle Road, rather, had the same problem, and that is the pace of growth. And I'm wondering if this is because of Bill 23 that you're doing these things, because you may feel that you get caught by the provincial tribunal. So that's the question number one. Why are you changing the zoning when the zoning is already there? And I know it's an application to change the zone, and I appreciate Schlegel's advance on this. But it's very important to know that, because Bill 23 talks about things like development charges, and we need those development charges in order to make these things work. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. And your second question?
Well, the second one has to do with traffic again, and it seems to be a regular question from everybody. Sandalwood isn't pure Ontario, that's for sure, and neither is Great Lakes, but there are a number of schools on that road. There are 4 schools, in fact. And I'm just wondering about the amount of traffic that goes on. Schlegel isn't responsible for the traffic, but you are. So the question is, does the traffic department think that the roadways there are big enough to handle the amount of traffic that would be on those roads?
Okay, thanks, Terry. I'm going to turn it over to staff, and we're going to try and answer the best of our ability some of those questions, but just in relation to the zoning bylaw, I don't think it's being changed specifically for Bill 23, but I'm sure our planners can elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, if I could, through the chair, thank you for the question, Mr. Miller. So Bill 23 contemplates, as you may have heard, accelerated growth across many municipalities. In particular in Brampton, we just recently signed our municipal housing pledge, which brings forward accelerated housing growth to the tune of 113 residential units over the next 8 years. The zoning bylaw that's currently in place in the city in many instances does not have zoning provisions to support that accelerated growth from Bill 23. So as we get development applications such as the subject application before us tonight, we will go through the planning process to tailor-make site-specific zoning to accommodate these in this case, additional heights where the original zoning does not support that. And then through staff's regular analysis of any development application, staff will analyze all of the inputs to make a recommendation, such as the one that's before council tonight. To the second question on traffic, I'll turn it over to staff, but based on the staff report, it would appear that all of the the traffic submissions met the criteria and standards from our traffic department. But I'll turn it over to staff to elaborate on that from any technical input.
Could you have staff address the issue of development charges as well? The collection of those?
Through the chair, at this point in time, the province has not released any of the regulations stemming from Bill 23 as it relates to the collection of development charges for residential growth. So at this point in time, the current growth pace for growth model is still in force and effect until we receive those regulations from the province.
Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to add to Commissioner Ganish's comments with respect to the technical review that was completed with the application, yes, just really in the normal course, as it is with all development applications, staff has reviewed the full gamut of various studies that have been submitted to us, which include traffic, parking, design matters, engineering matters, and it has been confirmed by all of our experts in-house in relation to the review of those studies that all those matters are really sufficiently resolved. The streets in and around the subject site will continue to operate well, considering the proposed development that is with us tonight, and there has been clearances that have been received from all those staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Terry, for your delegation.
Thank you.
Members of council, you have before you 7.3 staff report, application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, Wellings Planning Consultants, Schlegel Villages, Inc., 425 Great Lakes Drive, Ward 9. It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Singh. All those in favor? That carries. Our next item is 7.5. And there were added delegations. 6.6, two separate, or are they together? Richard Domes, Michael Gagnon, one delegation? Okay, come on down, Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Richard Domes again from GWD Planners. I'll keep my comments brief. Our client and its consulting team has worked positively with city staff and the city representatives, and we've worked towards and support the recommendations in the staff report. We look forward to working with the city staff further to bring forward a crystallized zoning bylaw that reflects the development proposal in the coming weeks, and basically here to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Are there any members that have any questions? Councillor Vincente.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I believe Councillor Santos is also on the board to speak. So with respect to the proposed bylaw that will be coming forward to council when we ratify this at council, can staff comment on whether...
Councillor Vincente, this is questions of Richard. Do you have any questions for Richard?
No, I do not.
Thank you, Richard, for coming.
Okay, I'm sorry, Richard. That's okay.
Thank you.
I'll now bring forward item 7.5, the staff report application to amend the zoning bylaw, the Heat Corporation, 255-6830 Ontario Inc., 226 Queen Street East, Ward 1. Councillor Vincente.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and again, through to staff. With respect to a few items that are within the report, daylight triangle and requirements to widen June Avenue. Typically, in the past, when we've talked about urban design and generally speaking, the direction that we want the city to go, when we're asking to widen June Avenue, is that really compatible with a lot of the directives that council has given in the past? Like, why are we asking for the widening of the street?
Through the chair, through to you, Councillor Vicente. In this particular case, the widening of June Avenue is driven by a number of factors. One, the need to look at the daylight triangle for sightlines, utilities, and potential improvements at the intersection of June and Queen for the proposed BRT. Having said that, staff have communicated with the applicant today, and we'll be meeting on Thursday to review both the requirement of widening of June Avenue and the requirement for the daylight triangle, with the view of resolving those through the site plan amendment process. I don't foresee, at my preliminary cursory review of the issues, I do not foresee the need for a full widening of June Avenue, but perhaps some tweaking at the intersection to accommodate some of the future needs with respect to utilities and the BRT. But those matters will be resolved with the applicant through the site plan approval process. And that would not hold up the forthcoming zoning bylaw, which we're scheduled to bring forth at the next council meeting, which I believe is April 5th.
Okay, very good. So if that's the case then, and I know Councillor Santos may comment on this as well, we would ask that as part of the approval of the recommendation today that we remove or that we amend our recommendation today to no longer require that and allow staff to work with the applicants through the site plan process and make those necessary improvements if they are in fact needed at that time.
Yeah, sure. Through the chair, would be happy to receive that direction.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you're amending the recommendation, then I'd ask you to put that into the words for the clerk once again, and I'll move over to Councillor Santos. Councillor Santos.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, I absolutely agree with the comments from Councillor Vicente for a number of different reasons, but also from our perspective, or the past few years watching this application and the process and the public consultation even before and in addition to public statutory meetings, the residents in the area are excited about this particular application moving swiftly through, and the renewal or revitalization of the site itself, which is infamously known as the Marigold Hotel. And so if we can approve this application without such prescriptive measures related to the expansion of June Street, which Councillor Vicente has shared, is, from our perspective, regressive to what we're trying to do with respect to road windings, et cetera. And I'll also add that we're trying to avoid local through traffic on some of those local roads. And by expanding June Street, we're going to encourage more people to use some of the local roads to pass through Kennedy and Queen. And so if we could be less prescription and deal with some of these issues at site plan, that will help us more swiftly deal with this application and make sure that the renewal of that, the Kennedy Queen site Marigold Hotel happens sooner rather than later. And thank you very much to city staff for accommodating some of these requests.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Councillor Vicente, this captures your amendment?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So yeah, we want to remove the requirements in relation to expansion of June Avenue and daylight triangle, Mr. Clerk.
Sorry, Councillor Vicente, can you repeat that?
Yes, so we just need to add daylight triangle. And I believe through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, would that be sufficient then?
Through the chair, what I might suggest is just a friendly amendment to say that removal of the requirements for the purpose of the recommendation, approval of this staff report, but deferral of those matters to the site plan process. So this way we're not tying ourselves into any potential requirements that might be needed for intersection improvements at June and Queen and whatnot.
And I would suggest that as well. I've looked at daylight triangles in the past, and it gets pretty tricky. I would suggest that referring that to staff to deal with that site plan is the best.
Yeah, and that is the understanding. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So then this isn't this is a referral of the amendments.
So through you, Mr. Chair, my understanding is the amendment is to essentially amend the draft zoning bylaw to remove the specific requirements for expansion of June Avenue and Daylight Triangle, if it's addressed in the zoning bylaw? If it's not, it's
No.
not. Okay.
So what we're gonna do is that, this is gonna be an amendment, and we're referring the removal of the requirements in relation to the expansion of June Avenue and the Daylight Triangle with consideration of these matters occur at the stage of site plan. So it's being referred back to staff to deal with that site plan.
So then perhaps we should treat this then as a separate
Yes.
recommendation altogether, as opposed to an amendment to recommendation 3.
So Councilor Vincente refers the almost had it. Refers the requirements in relation to the expansion of June Avenue and Daylight Triangle with consideration of these matters to occur at site plan. All in favor? That carries. The balance of the staff report, the application to amend the zoning bylaw 2556830 Ontario Inc., 226 Queen Street East, Ward 1. You have a question, Councilor Puff? That the report titled Recommendation Report Application to amend the zoning bylaw west of Kennedy Road and northeast corner, Queen Street East and June Avenue, Ward 1, zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Nahid Corp. On behalf of 2556830 Ontario Inc., Ward 1, and Planning, Building, Growth Management be approved on the basis that it represents good planning and it adheres to all the planning principles in the province and the city, that the amendments to the zoning bylaws generally attached as Appendix 9 to this report be adopted subsequent to the approval of the following studies: functional servicing report and traffic impact study, and that no further notice of public meeting be required for the attached zoning bylaw amendment pursuant to Section 3417 of the Planning Act. Been moved by Councilor Santos. All in favor? That carries. There is no other business. There are no referred matters. Correspondence has been dealt with. Councilor question period. Are there any members of council that wish to ask any questions in relation to the agenda here tonight? Seeing none. Any public questions, Peter?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are none submitted to the clerk's office. I'm not
Nope.
sure if there's anybody here.
No closed session. It's been moved by Councilor Brar. Adjournment. All in favor? Our next regular scheduled meeting is Monday, April 24th, 2023 at 7 p.m. or at the call of the chair. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night.